If we are painting watercolor leaves and flowers, why would I let you look at some leaves? Well, because our flowers need those leaves to show off their beauty. When we paint flowers, the flowers are the focal points, and surrounding them are the elements that make them show up. They are complementing those little flowers. And so many times we leave out the leaves and forget about them. But those leaves are very important. They will form the background or the frame of the flowers. And even if you underplay your flowers and make your leaves interesting, it will still make the flowers look good. The majority of every bouquet or even a branch in nature will consist mostly of leaves with a few scattered flowers here and there, each one placed to add an overall harmonious sense and portraying the flowers the best they can. Those leaves are very important to a floral composition. So in today's video, I'll be going over the greenery. Since we are creating a piece in our sketchbook, I want you not to attempt a finished piece here, but instead to experiment with the usage of your greens, mixing up various greens and also the placement of each of those leaves. Our color scheme starts with greens, of course, and I'm mixing up several shades, starting with the ones I already have in the palette and adjusting them, making sure I mix up a cooler version, a warm medium green, a pale green, and a yellowish green. You can mix up any of the greens you have on your palette, and I urge you to experiment at this stage. And remember to mix up enough, because we are going to paint several leaves, and we don't want you to run out of that favorite color. You can of course use the ones on your palette, but I bet you won't learn anything if you do that. You need to learn how to adjust your greens to take away that real glowing acidity and also to liven them up a little bit. If you take a look at some of the branches on your plants, you'll notice that not one single leaf has the same color or shape as the one next to it, or even the whole bunch. So our aim here today is to create a variation in shape, size, and color. And of course the complementary color for green is red, or if you have a limey green it would be pink. So we can easily create a variety of reds here by mixing up some of the reds on your palette and muting them slightly with the addition of a dash of green. And our pastel shades of the flowers are going to be created when we add more water to turn the color pastel, but we are never adding white. It will take away the light reflecting properties of your watercolor paints and remove that luminous glow that we're after. I know that's not what we're doing here today in this picture, but keep that in mind when working with watercolor. It is transparent for a reason, and that transparency is what captures the light and bounces it off of the paper. We are using the angled dagger brush. The very technical terms I'll be using throughout the video has real meaning to me, as I've learned how to talk to myself in terms of some darker green or a little bit of that, or maybe a dash of this. No, that doesn't look right. Let me adjust the color by putting in a smidge of that. So you'll discover your own language as you move along. And just know that when I say a little bit, it could be a very, very small amount, or it could just be the point of the brush dipped into the color we're talking about, or just less than you maybe took the previous time. There is no actual measurement, so you'll have to discover that for yourself as well. And that's why I keep on adding that we need to practice in our sketchbooks, because you'll learn the language of watercolor by actually using the watercolor. I have to add that by mixing your colors, you will develop a color scheme that will fit in with your aesthetics. It will also help you grow as an artist, and the way you adjust them will be unique to your style. I call this painting by feeling. It's like seeing something with glowing colors and knowing that it might be in a warm place, or looking at a snowy blizzard and almost wanting to go put that jacket on because you feel the cold. You sense that cold. Anyway, let's get to painting. With a loaded brush, I start the first leaf at an angle and then add some more leaves in a variety of shapes and sizes. I'll paint until the brush runs empty. Now, taking another green and continuing the random placement of the leaves. Remember to drag out some stems and bring those branches together. This whole painting will be from imagination, of course, as I didn't buy the bouquet that inspired me initially. The flowers looked a little bit wilted, and even though it was pretty, I still thought that it wouldn't last long enough. They had a dusty peacefulness to them. A few eucalyptus leaves, a branch or two of pink blossoms, and then fillers that looked like wheat sprigs. Of course, there were other smaller, finer elements and even a big fat leaf in the background, but I'm not going to focus on that today. At this point, I'm making the leaves slightly larger as we move to the base of the stem, still varying the shapes and the colors. Picking up greens from all four of the puddles will give me variation in those shades and create some interest. They are still somewhat dull, but have a natural sense to them. These combination of greens seem harmonious because a little bit of each is present in the other, and that brings all of them together. We can create a harmonious picture by doing the same thing, interchanging our colors so that they do match up with another one in the same painting. And if you don't feel like mixing your colors, of course you can use that green straight from the palette. But your picture won't be as interesting, and it won't grab your viewer's attention for long enough. So by using contrast and shape variation, color variation, you do create interest in some way. Instead of having a whole page filled with green leaves, you have something interesting to look at. The same goes for the placement of the objects. If an object is placed behind something else, it will have less color and more shadowy shades, if we can put it that way. The background ones are also the ones that are not in focus unless that is the focal point. And that will normally take place with photography. We don't see things that way with our natural eyes. unless you are actually blurring out the front area and looking at something in the distance. Anyway, if an object is behind another one, it is always less saturated and looks cooler. The same goes for sunlit spots. The light will show off that part, and the backgrounds will recede as they are duller than the foreground. The foreground will pop out because the colors are, of course, brighter. Keeping these basic concepts in mind while you plan and paint your painting will all increase your success in the end. I'll leave those layers of leaves to dry for now and mix up some pale reds. I'll start at the center of the flower with some thin downed mixes. I shape the petals, make them larger as they move outwards from the center, and of course lighter by adding more water. I'll place some emphasis on the center bits by darkening them up slightly with the same color. We know that red and green are complementary, and that is why a little bit of the one in the other will further enhance and bring your picture together. Have you tried mixing your reds and greens to see what they look like? Maybe get out a test swatch and just play with the greens and reds in your palette and see what they can do. See if you like those types of combinations, and also discover how you can adjust them to look deeper or brighter or more muted in some way. So even though we started at the center of each flower, we didn't make the center the middle, if you know what I mean. The centers of an angled flower will either be on the left, the right, the front, or the top, but it will never be in the middle. So be mindful when looking at your subject to see where that center area of your flower is. It's hardly in the middle. And when we're drawing them from imagination, we don't put them in the middle either, because our flowers will all start looking the same, and that always reminds me of flower donuts. The next flower will be behind the first one, and I'm adjusting this red to be a little bit cooler, meaning that this will just be a shadowy red. The second flower is in the same direction as the first one, but it is tucked behind. The third flower is also behind some of the leaves, and this will make it even cooler. I know it might be difficult to interpret what I'm seeing here, but you will understand it better when you start your painting in your own sketchbook. Practicing all these concepts will benefit you in the end. And remember, our flower bouquet needs some leaves on the other side. This will bring everything together and look like they all belong with each other. These colors are close to the ones I saw in the bouquet at the shop, but I will need some more work. This is, after all, just a practice run in my sketchbook. The third element we're going to add to our picture today is little yellowish, greenish, wheat-like elements. They will be the smallest of the things we're going to add to this arrangement. We also want this one muted. I suggest, if you don't want to mix or adjust colors, just use something like the yellow ochre. We can add, of course, a whole array of layers to this. Deepen some of them, add some veins, even add layers of color, and add more elements. Everything depends on what you're aiming for. I've reached the reason for painting this in the sketchbook today, so I will conclude this painting and call it a good practice piece and move on from here. Lastly, we are mixing up a yellowy green, or a greeny yellow, or a mustard. You can call it what you want. It doesn't have a specific name, but it is a yellowish color. We are placing the sprigs throughout the painting. Some will be tucked in behind leaves or flowers. Some will be in front, as we are trying to make them random. Until we see each other again, happy painting, and like, subscribe, and share the video. See you soon.